The police officer's voice pierced the crisp November air on what should have been a routine traffic stop in suburban Chicago. "Put your hands where I can see them!" Instead of compliance, the response came in the form of 3 sharp cracks from a high-powered rifle. One bullet shattered the squad car's windshield, finding its mark in Officer Kevin Marr's shoulder. Blood spreading across his uniform, Marr watched in disbelief as his assailant, a figure in a fake beard and sunglasses, didn't run or panic. Instead, the shooter calmly walked back to his car and drove away, as if this was just another day at the office. This wasn't just another criminal. This was the Bearded Bandit, and his story would become one of the most fascinating and tragic tales in Chicago's criminal history. Hey, true crime fans, if you're ready for more shocking stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Every criminal has an origin story, and Jeffrey Ericson's began in the quiet suburbs of Chicago during the 1960s and 70s. Born into what most would consider a typical middle-class family, Jeff's early life gave no indication of the chaos he would later unleash. His father worked as a telephone company manager, his mother tended to the home, and young Jeff lived in the shadow of his older brother Jim, seeking his own way to stand out. What set Jeff apart wasn't academic excellence or athletic prowess, it was his remarkable memory. Friends and family often marveled at his ability to recall the minutest details of things that interested him. This gift for observation and recall would later serve him well in his criminal career, though none could have predicted such a dark turn at the time. In 1977, after graduating from Niles West High School with unremarkable grades, but a solid reputation as a reliable member of the swim team, Jeff made a decision that would shape his future in ways he couldn't have imagined. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. The Marines transformed the quiet suburban kid into something else entirely. Jeff's natural attention to detail found its perfect outlet in marksmanship training. He quickly distinguished himself as an exceptional shot, earning recognition for his precision with firearms. The discipline, tactical training, and weapons expertise he gained during his 4 years of service would later become the foundation of his criminal methodology. But it was after his honorable discharge in 1981 that fate dealt its crucial hand. Walking into a bar in Niles, Illinois, 23-year-old Jeff laid eyes on Jill Cohen, a striking blonde celebrating her 17th birthday. Despite the 6-year age gap and the fact that she was still in high school, their connection was instant and electric. Jeff nicknamed her Gorgeous, and to him, she was perfect. But Jill's life was far from it. Behind her beautiful smile lay a troubled soul, wrestling with depression and the emotional fallout from her parents' bitter divorce. In Jeff, she found an escape, a protector, and a partner. Within 6 months, she dropped out of high school and moved in with him, leaving behind her tumultuous home life. Their wedding in July 1983 was a simple civil ceremony, but it marked the beginning of what seemed like a fresh start. Jeff found work as a truck driver, while Jill pursued her passion for science at Loyola University, working as a lab technician to help support their household. They shared a deep love for animals, filling their home with dogs and birds, even if it meant frequent moves to avoid landlords who weren't as enthusiastic about their growing menagerie. In 1986, Jeff made what seemed like a logical career move. He joined the Chicago Police Academy. With his military background and exceptional shooting skills, he appeared to be a perfect candidate for law enforcement. He landed a job with the Hoffman Estates Police Department, but something wasn't quite right. Police Chief Donald Cundiff would later reflect that Jeff just didn't have the common sense needed for basic police work. The reality was more complex. Jeff had the skills but not the heart for law enforcement. He struggled with the emotional toll of making arrests, feeling like he was ruining people's lives rather than protecting the community. When the department let him go, it could have been just another career setback. Instead, it became the catalyst for something far darker. Jeff would soon use his inside knowledge of law enforcement not to uphold the law, but to break it with devastating efficiency. January 9, 1990, marked the beginning of a crime spree that would captivate and terrorize Chicago's suburbs. Jeff walked into the First Nationwide Bank in Wilmette, Illinois, wearing what would become his signature disguise, a fake beard, baseball cap, and sunglasses. With a police scanner in one hand and a gun in the other, he executed a robbery with military precision. This wasn't a desperate act of a failed cop, it was the beginning of a meticulously planned criminal career. Over the next 22 months, the Bearded Bandit would strike 8 more banks, making off with nearly $200,000, equivalent to over $430,000 today. Each robbery showed the same careful planning and execution. Behind the scenes, Jill played a crucial role. Her scientific mind helped plan the logistics, arranging getaway cars and escape routes. Together they were more than just criminals. They were partners in a deadly dance that seemed to give their troubled lives purpose. By February 1991, the couple appeared to be living the American dream. They purchased a two-story townhouse in Hanover Park, putting down a cash payment of $22,600. When questioned about the source of their funds, Jeff smoothly explained that he was running his own business. In May, he opened Best Used Books in Roselle, a used bookstore that quickly became popular thanks to Jeff's encyclopedic knowledge of literature. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, their lives were spiraling out of control. Jill's mental health deteriorated as she battled what would later be diagnosed as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. She turned to alcohol to cope, becoming violent and unpredictable when drunk. Their financial situation was equally precarious, with Jill maxing out credit cards and Jeff pouring money into his bookstore. The FBI wasn't idle during this time. As the Bearded Bandit's robberies continued, federal agents began noticing patterns. The robber's military-style precision, his knowledge of police procedures, his use of police scanners, all pointed to someone with law enforcement or military background. The task force assigned to the case discovered another crucial detail. The bandit had a preference for Japanese-made vehicles, all of them stolen. But it was the shooting of Officer Kevin Marr during that routine traffic stop in November 1991 that changed everything. The incident transformed the Bearded Bandit from a non-violent bank robber into a dangerous fugitive willing to kill. The couple's downfall began on December 10, 1991, when federal agents spotted a stolen Mazda parked at the edge of a lot, its ignition wires exposed. For 6 days they maintained surveillance, waiting for someone to return to the vehicle. Their patience paid off on December 16th when a rusty gray van pulled into the lot. The arrest itself seemed anticlimactic at first. Jeff was taken into custody without resistance, found carrying 2 loaded guns, a fake beard, and 2 fake mustaches. But what followed was anything but routine. Jill, behind the wheel of the gray van, refused to surrender. She led police on a high-speed chase through suburban streets, reaching speeds of 110 miles per hour. Cornered in a residential neighborhood, she opened fire on the police, who returned fire, aiming for the van's tires. The chase ended when Jill's van crashed into a low cement wall. In the ensuing shootout, she was fatally wounded, ironically, by a bullet from her own gun. Jeff, handcuffed in the back of a police car, listened to the entire drama unfold over the police radio, helpless to intervene as his beloved Gorgeous met her end. But the tragedy wasn't over. 7 months later, while being transported from the Dirksen Federal Building to the Metropolitan Correctional Center, Jeff made his final move. Somehow slipping out of his handcuffs, he disarmed a deputy marshal and fatally shot her partner, Deputy Marshal Bill Frakes. In his desperate bid for freedom, Jeff encountered Harry Belaouameni, a retired detective working security. Despite Jeff's attempt to pass himself off as an FBI agent, Belaouameni wasn't fooled. In the ensuing gunfight, both men were fatally wounded. When authorities searched the Ericsons' townhouse, they found an arsenal that spoke to their preparations: weapons, ammunition, smoke grenades, gas masks, and countless disguises. In their VCR was a copy of Bonnie and Clyde, the 1967 film about notorious outlaws in love. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Like their silver screen counterparts, Jeff and Jill Ericson's story was one of love, crime, and violent death. But unlike the Hollywood version, their tale left real families shattered and real heroes dead. Deputy Marshal Bill Frakes and Harry Belaouameni weren't characters in a movie. They were real people who left behind grieving families and colleagues. The Bearded Bandit case changed bank security procedures throughout Chicago and led to enhanced protocols for prisoner transport. But perhaps its most lasting legacy is as a cautionary tale about the thin line between law enforcement and criminality, and how a love story can transform into a tragedy when dreams of excitement and escape trump morality and law. In the end, Jeff and Jill Ericson got the notoriety they seemed to crave, but at a price far higher than either could have imagined. Their story serves as a stark reminder that real-life crime sprees don't end with credits rolling. They end with real consequences, real loss, and real tragedy. Today, more than 3 decades later, the case of the Bearded Bandit remains one of Chicago's most fascinating and tragic criminal cases, a testament to how the combination of love, desperation, and expertise can create a perfect storm of criminality. It reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous criminals aren't hardened career offenders, but ordinary people who make a series of increasingly bad decisions until they find themselves trapped in a spiral of violence from which there is no escape.